Okay, so on this, what we're going to do is we're going to do a restriction on these two. I'm going to graph this one, and then I'm going to restrict it. Graph this one, and then restrict it. So first of all, to graph 2x minus 3, let's go ahead and let me do this one in red. Okay, now let's start at negative 3, 1, 2, 3. And then remember my slope, this is my rise over run. Try that again. Rise over run. So rise over run is going to be, in this case, 2 over 1. So we go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And then you draw the graph. Now, this says I'm going to have a restricted domain. So I take that graph, and what I want to do is stop it at the 2. So let me draw a quick version of this graph. Don't draw the graph yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say, okay, if I started at negative 3, I went up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and then drew the graph. What this restricted domain is, it basically is telling us, stop the graph at the 2. So I'm going to stop it right there at that 2 and use only that part of my graph. So this is how you restrict a domain, is you only do the part that it tells you. I'm not using any x values less than 2. All right, so same graph as that, just stopped, and the rest of that has been erased. Okay, let's do this one now. Let's do x squared plus 3. Just a reminder of what that looks like. Let's see if I can get it to work with red this time. Okay, so with this, I'm going to go with x squared plus 3. I'm going to start up here at 3, my graph. And if you want to, you can put it in a graphing calculator. But what this one will look like is it'll be at 1, 4. If you put in 2, 2 squared is 4, plus 3 is 7. So it'll be 2 up to 7. And so it'll look like this. And then it will repeat it right over here, okay, for the graph. Now, if I want this restricted domain, then let's go ahead and repeat that graph over here in red. Don't draw it yet because we're going to restrict the domain. Start it up here at 3. And then it's going to go, if you put in 1, it's going to equal 4. Negative 1 will be equal to 4. If you put in 2, you'll get 2 squared is 4 plus 3 is 7. So up to 7. Same with negative 2 squared is a positive 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. And so when we look at this graph here, what we want to do is restrict the domain to less than 2. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to erase everything on this graph that's greater than 2. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this one here and just make it an open dot there, because it's going to be less than it. So these are all the x values that are less than 2. So if I want to do what's called a piecewise function, so if I want to do a piecewise function, fill this in here, where the rule is 2x minus 3 for x is greater than or equal to 2. Notice that was what we did up here. At 2x minus 3 greater than or equal to 2. And if I want to do the second part of the piecewise function, the second rule, so you have 2 pieces to it, x squared plus 3 for x is less than 2. This just tells me use this rule when our x values are less than or equal to 2. Use this rule when the x values are less than 2. So greater than or equal to, less than 2. So I get my 2x minus 3, and it was a closed dot there. I'm going to go with this here. Okay, so, and what I'll do is I'll take this and go from here, just this part of the graph, and go up from there, to greater than or equal to 2, and I will erase the rest of it. I don't want this side of 2. And then I'll do the same thing with, this one. I'll start it at 3 here for my typical graph. I'll go up to 4, and then I'll go up to 7 here when I get to 2, but I'll do an open dot like I did there, and then do the same thing on the other side, but I'll keep it going. So this graph will be a parabola that goes like, oh, this one's going to be right there. We'll go like that. And so a piecewise function has this interesting look where it ends up looking like 2 pieces on the same graph. This line here goes off to forever on 2, and this part of the parabola. So piecewise functions do your normal graphs, but then just use only these domains for those. Only use the x values that are listed in the domains here for these rules. So we've reviewed over your typical graphs that we have early here in Algebra 2, and then we've talked about extending that a little bit, restricting our domains so that we now have what are the beginnings of looking at piecewise functions.